Sir, at the onset, I would like to convey our gratitude, sir. It's a matter of great honor and privilege that you're here with us, sir.
Thank you.
And today is a big day for us. Your presence means a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for the Army Chief. When we were playing this video, a lot of people said that, can we have the video? So yes, I'll WhatsApp it to you. Yeah, it's an excellent video. I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask the Chief, and we'll get the conversation going. The intent is to talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, arming the army. So obviously, here the intent is that every nation must have its own indigenous research and development, its own indigenous manufacturing to be called a superpower. Every superpower has that. America has that, England, Russia, China, you name it and they have it. India too must develop that capability. So with your permission, we'll start, sir.
Yeah, please.
And the first question that I have is that the Indian Army is currently undergoing a transformational change by modernization through Atmanirbharta, sir. Restructuring of formations and implementing a new HR policy, Agnipath, while undergoing optimization as per recommendations of the Committee of Experts. With Indian Army deployed along two active borders, how is force undertaking this transformation management without compromising its operational preparedness?
Right. Thank you, Gaurav, for this question. And like you rightly mentioned, we are undertaking a number of transformational initiatives, essentially to make the army more modern, future-ready force to be able to meet contemporary and future challenges in the battlefield. And these transformation initiatives span across different domains, right from the capability development to the HR management philosophy or the Agnipath philosophy that you mentioned, as also the Atmanirbhar or achieving self-reliance, as well as restructuring or right-sizing our army. And of course, I don't have to say as to what have been the drivers for this change. Largely the unprecedented changes that are happening in the geostrategic domain, combined with, we have seen the limitless potential of disruptive technologies. Also, there are certain changes in the socio-economic domain and, of course, most importantly, the changing character of war. Now, this is what has actually necessitated that we undertake these transformation initiatives. And largely the purpose, I would say, would be to increase our efficiency and enhance effectiveness in all domains, be it the operational, functional, or the administrative domains. So that is, the background as to why we are doing these transformational initiatives. Now, while all this is happening, it is extremely important, like you mentioned, that we do not lower our guard as far as our deployment commitments on the western borders, as well as the northern borders, as well as in various internal security situation commitments are concerned. So it is extremely critical that while this transformation is happening, we keep this in mind all the time. And how we are doing this, I would say we are following a sort of 4-step process. At the apex level, it is the setting up the right policy framework. Next comes establishing the mechanisms by which all these 4 or 5 things must happen together. Then is the execution part. And lastly, there is also a cognitive interface, which I feel is extremely important. And I'll just take up some time to explain each one of these. So at the apex level, insofar as the policy frame is concerned, it is the strategic guidance which we've given. As also there are other stakeholders. It's not purely the army which is undertaking this transformation. There are other departments within the ministry, as also there are other ministries and agencies who we need to take them along while we do this transformation. So that is one. As far as the second part, that is establishing the mechanisms are concerned, we are looking at the 4 pillars. The first one is the restructuring and the right sizing. Second one is optimization. The third one is the HR management philosophy. And fourth is modernization. And for each of these, we have prepared a transformation roadmap, clearly laying down what are the waypoints and what are the various timelines for review at each stage. And within the Army headquarters, we have identified the verticals. Each vertical will look after the individual transformation initiative. And within these verticals, there are cross linkages, which are as important. So it is important that each of these verticals talk to each other. And then at the apex level, I have the Vice Chief of the Army Staff who is overseeing this entire thing. So this is the kind of mechanism we are having. I mentioned at the executional level, I believe the role of the junior leaders, the field force, our formation commanders, battalion commanders, is going to be extremely important in all of these four. I also mentioned about the cognitive interface, and this is being led by our Army Training Command, because I believe change management is an extremely important part. And they have come up with a change management philosophy wherein we have explained to right from our senior leadership right up to the lowest rung of leadership as to how we need to bring about this attitudinal change, how we need to change the approach, how we need to look at things differently for this whole thing to be put together. So that in a sense is how we are approaching this. And while all this is happening, it is extremely important, the way you pointed out, that our operational preparedness levels along the border are in no way diluted. So in terms of, shall we say, the troops that are deployed there, the strength that we need to have in units, the equipment, the sustenance, the ammunition, etc., I wish to assure you that that has all been taken care of through this mechanism that I just described. And it is not as if this transformation is happening over the next, within a finite time. It's an incremental process. It will take time. But yes, we have the end state. We know where we are reaching. And we have a very, like I was trying to explain, a firm plan to achieve those objectives of the end state.
So what does the Army feel about Atmanirbhar Bharat? What is the feeling, what is the sensing within the Army about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and what are the indigenously manufactured weapons and equipment that you see the Indian Army inducting over a period of the next few years?
So let me start by, taking you back to the pandemic days. And during the pandemic, the frailty, the vulnerability of the global supply chains adequately came to the fore, be it the supply of your PPE or other vaccines and the likes. I mean, this requirement of self-reliance or becoming self-dependent adequately came out. Then you had the situation that came about along the northern borders, more or less the same time. And more recently, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on our sustenance requirements of our defense equipment, etc. Now that again told us very clearly that you cannot rely on foreign dependence for our capital procurement requirements, as also more importantly for the sustenance requirements. And hence, I think it has become a strategic necessity that we develop our own capacities, we become self-dependent, self-reliant, or in other words, Atmanirbhar in all these fields. So that is how I look at the importance of Atmanirbharta as we move forward. As far as the other aspect, how we are looking at it, I think there are a number of advantages. And if I were to list out some of them, I think first and foremost is in terms of, our industry being able to meet our peculiar requirements of weapon systems, etc., to meet our operational conditions, terrain conditions and the likes. The second is the confidence that it gives you in terms of our sustenance requirements, which I just highlighted. And whenever you require, you can ramp up the supply requirements, you can ramp up the production or manufacturing ability. Third, I think it's a good opportunity. You have a very vibrant startup ecosystem. We have bright, brilliant young minds, technologically very good. So this is a good opportunity for them to step up and contribute to the defense sector. Fourth, I think it is also a matter of great pride and ownership. After all, if you have a soldier who's utilizing or he's armed with a equipment or a weapon system which is indigenously manufactured. So there is that fourth aspect of it. I visited some of these industries, big and small, and I think the kind of manufacturing facilities they have, kind of research processes that they are undertaking, it gives me great confidence. And they have been able to deliver. Most of them have stepped up to meet our requirements. So I think in terms of Atmanirbharta, as far as Army goes, I think we are fully convinced and we are doing our part, we are playing our role proactive in doing it. Your second part as to what are the equipment that you're looking at, if I were to briefly tell you, when you look at an infantry soldier, of course, we're looking at a future infantry soldier system as to what kind of protection, how can he have better situational awareness, a better personal weapon, how can he communicate better. So this as far as the infantry goes, and other long range of small arms weapons. As far as the artillery goes, it is different types of our 155 millimeter caliber guns, which we have accepted to be the basic or finally the caliber of the weapon that we will choose. Then there are aspects of long range rocket systems, better munitions, more precision guided weapons, and likewise. In the realm of mechanized forces, we are looking at a future infantry combat vehicle, a future ready armored vehicle, and the likes, see-through armament, and number of those things. For aviation, we are looking at drones, counter drones systems, as well as the light combat helicopter, light utility helicopters, and in communication, the software-defined radios, and likewise. So these are specific areas that we're looking at as far as Atmanirbharta goes.
So you mentioned a startup ecosystem. So you spoke about it and you said that you visited a lot of these places and it gives you a lot of confidence that these youngsters are doing such a fine job. Now, my question to you is, so what is the Indian Army doing? Is the Indian Army helping private manufacturers? Is it funding private manufacturers? Is it helping with the research and development? Is it leading the way in sorts? Because there has to be acceptability from within the Army that yes, we are part of this ecosystem. And we are not just consumers, we are part of this entire ecosystem, sir. Well, what do you feel about that?
You know, about 7-8 years back, we started this process of indigenization, initially by transfer of technology, and which complemented the Make in India initiative. And that is how the technology came in. But we realized that after all, if you are going to rely on technology which is coming from outside, nations are not going to share with you the niche technology. So you will always remain, as we say, a bound behind in terms of leveraging technology. And hence, I think the importance of developing on our R&D and developing technologies indigenously. Also, I must tell you, in terms of the niche technologies, their research, design and development, and the manufacturing ecosystem, I feel there are 4 essential pillars that we need to look at. One is the resource allocation, second is the enabling policies, third is the viable market, and fourth is competitiveness. Now, if these 4 things you are able to get together and provide to the private industry, they will step up. And within all this, we need to understand what is the role of the services. And I feel the role of the services is to be enablers for implementation of the government policies as well as to be able to provide a viable market. In terms of private industry and the hand-holding, I'll give you about 5-6 bullet points as to how we are doing it. One, of course, is we're looking at a concept of spiral development. So initially you give a requirement, and subsequently, even if, let us say, industry is not able to reach up to that, so we look at a spiral development. At each stage, you look at better outcomes or better performance. We are also very proactively engaging with all the premier academic institutes in our country. We have about 20 projects going with them, for about 60 odd crores. We have an Indian Army cell currently, which we have set it up in the IIT Delhi. And we plan to set up these cells next in IIT Kanpur and the IISc Bangalore. Because the aim is then to pick up on the technologies where these academia and these young brilliant minds are able to contribute and meet our requirements. We have also been helping the private industry in a number of other ways in terms of providing them the trial testing facilities, providing them our equipment for undertaking trials. Then there are these IDEX Innovation in Defense Excellence projects. Currently we have, I think, 40 of them, where almost 182 industries have taken part. And then there is the Technology Development Fund with the DRDO. We currently have, I think, 6 projects, again, about 60 to 70 crores. So this is how this entire private industry, and this is how we, and so now we are looking at the relationship between the industry and the military or the army, not as a buyer-seller relationship, but more as a partnership. I mean, that is what my purpose has been, and I have been trying to explain to my sort of leaders. And I also believe in another thing. We now need to indigenize to modernize, because indigenously we do have all the technologies, right, from maybe 5G and what have you. So there is potential. It's all here. It is critical for us to be able to synergize and come up with these models as to how it can be then put to good use to meet defense requirements.
Sir, I'm going to ask you a question about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, sir. And much of the held beliefs, which we thought were true over a period of decades, this war has completely smashed them. Like, for example, we never thought that a war in this day and age will last for so many months.
Absolutely.
It started off in the month of February, sir. It shows no sign of ending as we speak today, sir. And so many other things like massed artillery and these tank warfare. We thought these were things of the past. We thought these were remnants of the Second World War. That was the thinking, sir. So what are the lessons that we have learned from the Russia-Ukraine conflict? So what are the lessons for the Indian Army?
Right, so we've been following these developments very closely. And to my way of thinking, there are lessons right from the tactical level to the strategic level that we need to, that we can learn. But we have to see their relevance in the Indian context. And it will not be correct to blindly extrapolate them and apply them in our context. Insofar as the lessons are concerned, I think one of the most important lesson is that the hard power will still continue to be used by nations where other means fail to achieve their national objectives. The second, like you mentioned, there was a belief that the conventional wars are a passé, but that doesn't, I mean, it has, I think, disproved this hypothesis. The relevance of land power, perhaps, or the primacy of land power, again, I feel is something which has been, adequately brought out in this war. In terms of grey zone, I think that is a strategy of choice for certain nations to achieve their national objectives, especially with the deniability. It is also an alternate strategy wherein you can utilize both non-kinetic as well as kinetic means at a sub-threshold level to again achieve your war aims. So these are some of the major lessons. Insofar technology infusion is concerned, you rightly mentioned, you had drones, counter drones, you had cyber warfare, you had space, the communications. So there are, in these domains as well, there are a number of lessons that we need to. But perhaps the most profound lesson for us will again be the importance of being self-reliant to reduce dependence on global supply chains and outside import for meeting our defense requirements. So these are some of the lessons that we are closely looking at, sure, besides lessons applicable to each arm and service.
So my next question to you is, sir, what is the situation along the northern borders as we speak today, sir? We've been facing stress there for some time, sir. And there has been a face-off with the PLA. And the Indian Army, of course, acquitted itself wonderfully, sir, most professionally. But what is the real situation along the northern borders, and have we transitioned to a winter posture?
Right. So in a single sentence, if I were to describe, I'll say the situation is stable but unpredictable. Right. And you are aware of the ongoing talks, right at the political, diplomatic, at the military level, which have been going on between the two sides. You are also aware, because of these talks, we have been able to find resolution in 5 out of the 7 friction points which were on the table. And it is for the next 2 friction points that we are attempting to find resolution. And the 25th round of the WMCC, which took place on 15th October, I think has set the stage. We are looking at the next date for the 17th round. And that is where I believe through talks, through negotiation, to dialogue, we hope to find resolution in these 2 areas. Now, as far as the PLA strength, the force levels are concerned, there has been no significant reduction. While there were certain formations, some of their brigades, which had come for the purposes of collective training, with the onset of winters, there are indications of their going back. But on the LAC itself, there is no reduction of strength. In terms of infrastructure development, I think that is going on unabated. You have infrastructure in terms of road infrastructure, helipads, the airfield, including the roads right up to the passes. One of the notable developments has been the G695, and you would have read about it, a road or a highway which is running parallel to the LAC, which will give him the ability to not only move forces forward, but also switch forces from one sector to another. Sure. So that is as far as the infrastructure goes. Insofar our preparations are concerned, our transition to the winter posture is currently underway, but we've also made sure that we have adequate forces, adequate reserves to be able to deal with this contingency. But in a larger context, I think we need to very carefully calibrate our actions on the LAC to be able to safeguard both our interests and sensitivities, yet be prepared to deal with all types of contingencies. So that is how I think the current situation on the LAC I would describe.
Sir, after this entire Ukraine-Russia conflict, so there has been a lot of talk about kamikaze drones and new technologies, disruptive technologies, sir. And the use of technology. This war has thrown up so many possibilities. We always had drones, sir. And Indian Army has had drones for a very long time. But a new kind of drone, which to me at least it was new, sir, is kind of kamikaze drones hitting tanks and hitting armored vehicles and personal carrier from up above, and so many other things happen. So how's the Indian Army embracing these new technologies, these new disruptive technologies? Because they're moving at a very, very rapid rate. So what is our plan? How are we doing it, sir?
No, you're absolutely right. So leveraging niche technologies or new technologies has been an essential component or a pillar of our capability development or modernization plans. And we must make sure that whatever these technologies are available, some of them that you described and many more, we are able to, in good time, able to apply them, adopt them in our defense requirements. So that is something which is extremely critical. Now, as to what we are doing it, some of it I already covered. Our interaction with the academic institutes, premier academic institutes, our interaction, our engagement with the startups as to how we are doing it. I mentioned about the spiral development. But I'd like to give a few examples. So let us say in the field of artificial intelligence, we have been able to successfully use an AI software to fuse our intelligence input from various surveillance sources that you are aware of, that you have along the border. Sure. That we have been successfully able to do. We have also our project wherein we want to, for change detection, change recognition in satellite imageries is another area where I think we have made good headway. In terms of quantum key distribution, we've been able to achieve a single hop range of something like 119 kilometers, which I believe is again a good positive step, and this is in the actual operational conditions in the area of Eastern Ladakh. So in each of these, I think we are making good headway. And this is where specifically areas where interacting with the startups, the academic institutes, likewise the software-defined radios, right? So this is what our approach to this has been. And we believe that even if there are 20 things that we are trying, if we succeed in, let us say, 7, 8, 10, that itself is a good beginning. So we are not looking at a 100% success rate in all this. So that has been our approach. Let us try, let us have maximum people come up. And our experience has been that it has worked well.
Sure. So my last question is, sir, that of late the Indian Army has tried to get its acquisition game right by fully utilizing the fast-track procedures and emergency enhanced powers granted to its senior officers. Now, can you give us some details of why and how it worked? Because we have heard about shortfall of ammunition. It came up in the parliament a few years back, sir. And shortfall of weapons. Plus, we have, sir, 2 nuclear-armed rivals with whom we have fought wars. So how is this entire acquisition game being played out by the Indian Army, and what is the Indian Army doing, sir?
So the emergency procurement provision as part of the FTP or the fast track procedure was a provision or a waiver granted to the services, and we've had so far 3 tranches. The first happened after Uri, then was Balakot, and then was the situation post what happened in eastern Ladakh. And the aim there was, or the purpose was, to meet the emergent operational requirements of forward troops deployed especially in eastern Ladakh or along the northern borders. That was the purpose of the last EP or the emergency procurement provision that was granted. And that enables the service headquarters to procure, or the vice chiefs, something to the tune of 300 crores for each of the contracts. And this is something which we have been able to successfully use. And the aim is to buy certain quantities initially, to try them in the field formation in forward areas. And based on the feedback, based on the success, that would form the basis of our major capital procurement cases. In the past, we've had about 68 EP cases, about 6,000 crores or thereabouts. And these have again spanned from various different domains, right? From surveillance, your drones, your jammers, your counter jammers, your protected, mobility protected vehicles, and the likes. So this has worked out well. In the latest provision which has been granted, incidentally, out of those 68 cases, 50% were, indigenous, and out of those 50%, another 50% were for MSMEs. So this was a good opportunity, and there was a lot of enthusiasm among the startup ecosystem for this, just as it is for the 4th tranche. So this has worked well. This has also enabled us to try out, test new technologies, which can be developed or which can be fielded by prospective vendors in that limited period of 6 months. So this is the 2-pronged approach we are following. On one hand, technology which has already been tested and tried, where you don't have to go through extensive trials. Yet, there are also certain cases where we want to try out new technologies. And because of this, I think there is a lot of interest, lot of enthusiasm generated amongst our defense industry. And our aim is to capitalize on this and move forward.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. It was wonderful talking to you. And with your permission, sir, we'll take 2 questions from the audience. Right. So, yeah, please.
Jain sir. So I am Colonel Vivek Sharma sir. Recently sir, Army has institutionalized a new recruiting scheme called as Agniveer scheme sir. Approximately 7 to 8 months have passed sir. So can I request you to throw some light that how it has progressed sir, and what has been the response of youth about it across the country sir?
Right. So let me start by saying that I'm glad you didn't ask as to whether the scheme is good. I think that issue is settled now. because initially we were sort of talking of the benefits and the pitfalls and the likes. But I'm glad over a period of time, I think there is confidence within our organization right up to the level of the last Jawan, amongst the, shall we say, the veteran community and the public at large on the benefits. Now, to my way of thinking, it is going to be a game changer. It is a major transformative reform, a progressive step, I think, whose time had come. So I'll not list out the benefits. I think that is a known fact now or a given. But where are we in terms of implementation of the scheme? We commenced the recruitment rallies. We had total of close to 100 rallies, which included 85 for regular soldiers, another 10 for women soldiers, and some for the others. So out of these, I think 60%, 65% of the rallies we have already gone through, and the response has been extremely good. Amongst those who applied, we were also looking at, if you recall, one of the things was that we must have technologically educated or technically adept youth joining in, to say those who are through the ITIs, through other technical institutes, etc. So there again, we have got some good response. We are now trying to analyze, because this was the first time. So now this will give us a good guide, good handle in future as to which out of our technical trades can we look from out of this. So the recruitment process itself, I would say, has been, it's proceeding extremely well. We will start the first, training of recruits, the first cycle comprising 25,000 around 3rd week of December. That is when they will join the centers. One of the key, while all this is happening at the back end, there are other systems that we needed to look at. We needed to look at as to on what basis would you select the Agniveer for retention after 4 years. So we've come out with a robust, credible, transparent, fair, yet implementable selection process. And that has been approved by the concerned authorities. We are in the process of putting out in an automated centralized database, because these Agniveers, after their initial 31 weeks of training, are going to be posted in all units. So the system must cater for, their correct assessment by different people. So we've got this in place. We've also got, there are other issues of how do you skill them, so that when they move out after 4 years, what kind of skill set they carry. So we are in touch with the MOSD, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Ministry, and they have been very forthcoming. Likewise, with the Ministry of Education, in terms of what education qualification or enhancement will they achieve at the end of 4 years. So there has been good response on that front. I would say about 70% of the work is already over. Then there was this aspect of what after 4 years. Will there be government agencies, private sector, will they be able to absorb them? So that outreach is continuing. A lot of government ministries have announced reservations for the Agniveers, and so have the private industry associations such as SIDM and the likes. That is one. The recruit training, which will now get compressed to 31 weeks, is a major challenge, because earlier you had recruit training going right from 50 weeks upwards. So this is something which, to my in my opinion, is extremely critical. So we have geared up our regimental centers to get more simulators, to have more technology, so that this reduction or compressing this recruit period to 31 weeks, that doesn't get adversely impacted, because at the end of it, you don't want not fully trained soldiers coming out of the centers and going to the units. There is also this aspect of the physical stress. So earlier the youth or a recruit is going to be the same, but he will be put through the same kind of medical duress or strain stress in this 31. So how does that body able to handle? So we have to beef up the medical setup, the doctors, etc., maybe physiotherapists and the others enablers. So that is another thing that we are looking at. And also important here is educating or telling our junior leaders at the unit level, because there is aspect of assimilation and integration of the Agniveers. Right? Once they join the units, they need to be looked at as, a normal soldier and not as if he's going to be here for 4 years and thereafter leave. So that is what I have been telling our junior leaders, that they'll have a very important role to play. And there are a whole lot of other management issues, right, relating to the human resource management, cadre management, their transfers, their postings, their emoluments, what happens if we become a battle casualty, and likewise. Now all these have been adequately addressed. So I must assure you, we are on the right track. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one more question.
So may I?
One more question.
Sir, given the way the role technology has played in the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the progress we are making towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, especially to use indigenous technology in weapon systems, do you think probably it is a fine time for us to revisit the idea of setting up a defense cyber agency and have a full-fledged defense cyber command, especially when both our principal adversaries now have it? So do you think that we need to revisit and shed those inhibitions and have a full-fledged cyber command in India, especially when our civilian counterpart, we don't have anything?
Right. So as I see it, your suggestion is instead of a cyber agency, we move on to a cyber command, right? That is the final aim, right? Because before you have cyber command, you must have those kind of assets, which, the cyber command should be able to, shall we say, operate or utilize or take charge of. I think presently, or cyber, or for that matter, even space, right? So we are looking at the cyber command, space command, and the special forces command, all three in a similar manner. So there is a beginning which has been made in terms of having defense cyber agency, and you are aware the space agency, and likewise. And I'm sure in due course of time, as we progress, this will just be a precursor or a foundation for establishment of a cyber command. But let me just try and answer that question. So before I disappoint you, you please say that again. I'll make an attempt.
So Xi Jinping, he said they should be prepared for war. But whereas we know that they, perhaps, that's my perception, as a junior officer, they don't have the courage to actually go ahead with it. Might be still saber rattling. Whereas on this, isn't it contrary to Sandhu's philosophy of the art of war, where he says to win wars without fighting? And here he says be prepared for war.
Right. So, we all know what the Chinese say and what they do is quite different. So, it's also part of the deception or their nature, their character, right? So, we only, what they say or what they articulate, we need to just, but perhaps we need to focus on their actions rather than what is there in the written text or written scripts or their articulation. Perhaps then we'll not go wrong.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.